Hello YouTube. So I'm back with a little update on the Citroen ID 1970 engine teardown. It's gonna be the part 2 since I made my first video last time. So this is a little follow-up on the engine and what's caused the problems for the last 25-30 years. It's been a non-runner, so now I good it all up in a special kind of formula that I use to wash these things, all the parts, so we could have a closer look after we dry it up and get it inside again. So I'm gonna make a high pressure steaming of this, and I'll put you on pause in the meantime. So, hello YouTube, we are back with another video, and we've been doing some cleaning up here, and I'll show you what it's all about. So, I had a little clean off on this gearbox, and turned out pretty well. Now I'm just gonna blow it over with some high pressure air, and yeah, here is the engine block, decarboned and nice and clean. Also give it some air and take it inside and we'll have a look at it. So we've been relocated to inside the workshop, and I have made sure that everything I have as of light bulbs and LED lights and everything is switched on, so that we can have a closer look at the Citroen ID 1970. Yes, the restoration project that many consider really impossible to do. So quick update on the car. It's been sitting since about 1997 to 1999, and it's really been ups and downs. The previous owner took care of the car really good. It's a low mileage car. It's done 76,000 kilometers. I don't know what that converts to in miles or French, some units, but it's a low mileage car, so I'm looking at, I'll show you, but then again, it's just been sitting around, and the previous owner, he never got it running again. So I think, back then, a lot of different things were tried out, like Coca-Cola in the carburetor, and or sparkling water in the carburetor, or different kinds of, I don't know. But anyway, whatever happened, I traced it down to what actually happened, and what was the cause of this wonderful machine got just abandoned actually, and left sitting, rotting away, and forgotten about. So we're gonna take a little look. It's pretty interesting. Now the parts are mostly cleaned up and a little bit tidier, and it's possible to have a good look. So I'll switch you over to the other cab. Yeah, so this is some of the parts that I cleaned up. It's really important to make the parts you're gonna work with. If you're doing whatever you're doing, just make sure, just clean it up real good before you start doing anything with it, or taking it apart or anything, because it's just so much more pleasant to work with stuff that's a little bit clean. I'm not saying perfectly clear or clean or polished or anything. You can see this didn't come through 100%, but it was, bear in mind, from the first video, this was really caked up. It's been through about 4 or 5 washes with the high pressure washer, but it's still some there that I'll take care of mechanically later when it's going to have a new finish. Yeah, so we have the gearbox. That's really also you can see the difference from before when this was filled with oil and debris, and it was just not good to see anything at all here. But now we have a clean, nice surface area where we can do a nice piece of work on. It's the same with the bottom pan here, with the oil pan. You remember how this looked before? It was a thick film of filth in the bottom here, and now you can actually see just a little tiny little hole from this chamber and out here, and this is all sealed up in the bottom. So it's just this little hole that was supposed to take all that crud out from yeah, basically half the oil pan. So that's not gonna be easy. So I recommend, if you have one of these cars, you should really take that apart, yeah, and clean that up, and make sure it's really nice and tidy, everything in here. Flywheel the same, everything is really nice and clean. So back to something more interesting. So this is the engine block, and in order to find out the cause of the bent push rod that we found in the first video, I had to take this to a little bit minor pieces and have a really good look at it. Let's see here, and clean this up a little bit, of course, not perfectly yet, but good enough to just check out what state this is in. So what's actually, I'm really impressed, because all these channels, the cooling channels that are here, that's all the coolant going through, and this is for the valve seats. You can see the camshaft in there, and the lobes all look really nice. No wear or tear on those. And the same with the seatings for the push rods that are supposed to be in here. They are over here on the board, nice and sorted and cleaned up. And they're going back in here. I'm about to change. I've ordered all the parts to change the chain that is on the timing chain, or yeah, call it call it what you might call it. It's mounted all the way in the back wall of the engine. So I read somewhere that Citroen recommends this being done every about 150,000 kilometers. So I'm thinking it's an engine out job, so while the engine is out, this is definitely nothing to spare any money on. So this is coming new with the tensioner here. That will be the new type. It's really not much worn. I've checked the surfaces here. You can barely get your fingernail in the track here. So so that really corresponds to the low mileage of the car. And yeah, the same is the proof of the edges here in the cylinder walls. There's really nothing here, you know. You can feel a little bit, but it's it's like just ran in. So So that's good. And I found out that you know it looks really good. It's really not necessary to take these valve seats, or yeah, piston seats, sleeves, or yeah, cylinder walls. It's really not necessary to take those out at this stage, because we don't have, I can visually inspect them from the inside, and they all look really good. You know, there's no cracks or anything that can be harming over there. That's really not a problem. And they go really smooth up and down too. It's by hand force. And yeah, so I'm I'm calling it a day with yeah, besides from a good cleanup here. So that's okay. And this is all good. Here's gonna come a new seal here for the distributor shaft, or for the camshaft that's running the distributor to the ignition and everything. So yeah, and the same story here. You know, I really, I checked all everything in here, and you can't. I'm gonna grab some light here. Let's take a look. You know, from what I can see inside here, there's been nothing really, no leaks with coolant or anything from the bottom of the sleeves. That's all been spared. So I noticed there was some heat marks, a little bit blue around the bearings here, but I took this sleeve off and checked it, and it looks almost like brand new. So so there's no need to worry about anything. I think in here that just looks really nice, actually, all of this. So there's no cylinder, or you know, there's no oil seal where the shaft comes out here. It's no oil seal there. So if there was, I would change that sim ring or O-ring, but there isn't. And the reason why not is because inside of these shafts is a throwback ring that makes sure that when the engine is rotating, it throws the oil back inside to the engine instead of putting it, yeah, you know, splashing it outside. So it's like a grooved sleeve, and works on friction. So that's that's what I've understood from it. So yeah, look at all this. This is handwritten from the factory days, back when this was a really revolutionary machine. So we're going over here to yeah, by the way, I ordered this new engine mount on the exhaust side, because that's the one that usually goes, and you can see this is bad. So it's because of the heat and stuff that yeah, it gets a lot of beating, this one on the right side of the car. So we're going over here to the head. That's where I was suspecting that we would have some cracks or some trouble with yeah, you know, this was really my biggest concern, was the head, but it's really looking quite nicely. There is nothing, actually. I can't see any cracks. I took this valve out, and you can see this is the intake valve. So you can see some green goo in there and rust, which is indicating to me that it's coolant that's come in that way. So I was immediately suspecting a crack in these channels here. that go with the water. The water flows through the head, but I'm not convinced that that was the problem. So I was searching more and more, and I just couldn't realize how it could be. But as you can see, there has not been anything in the exhaust side or in the here. It's all just black, you know. There's really no sign of any water coming out through the exhaust side. So that left me with the intake side, and if you have a closer look, you can see this first. Yeah, that's the first cylinder. There's the green goo again, and the second one is the green goo again. This little port in the middle here, that's where the water from the cooling of the head flows through and out again from the motor. There is the green goo, and there is also green goo there. So yeah, we got green goo in every single intake port. And yeah, that's the bent rod in the middle here. That's the rod which, yeah, was bent. The valve is okay. I checked it and it's pretty straight and looks good. So I couldn't figure anything more what could have happened there. So you can also see the exhaust manifolds. They're all dry inside. That means that there is no green goo in that side of the intake. So let's go over here and have a look at this. I'm gonna show you something. So this is the intake manifold, and intake is I've cleaned this with the Dremel inside, so the worst of it was really bad, and you can see some green goo still in there, so you kind of get the point why this car was sitting for 25-30 years. Something was wrong here, and that meant that nobody could fix it, and nobody wanted to fix it, and nobody wanted to touch it back in the day, so they just parked it up, and that's really sad. So so what I figured was that this is the middle hole. That is the hole we saw in the top, that coolant is coming through. This is the intake where the carburetor fits. Carb fits outside here on a spacer disc. I'll show you in a second. But anyway, the coolant side of this wonderful manifold that's meant to circulate or exchange the heat from the water to the intake air at cold temperatures is what I was fearing had a crack inside of it, so it let the coolant to drain over in the intake manifold, and yeah, into the chain of into the chain of the valves and cylinders and combustion chamber. So what I did was just cap this off with a good old-fashioned little piece of rubber and some clamps, and putting some vacuum meter on it, and I've not found any leak in it. Nothing at all. I had my suspicions on that there was some cracks, you know, old coolant, 20 years old, it could have frozen and just cracked the manifold, it's alloy. But it didn't. That is... So it was a mystery. Why was there coming coolant inside to the combustion chamber? And why is the push rod bent on the engine? And how could it happen if the head gasket was very nice and in one piece? So I investigated further, and we're coming over here, and this is the gasket for the carb that it sits on. The carburetor is mounted on this. It's a spacer disc. Don't throw this away if you get a gasket kit for your carb. Don't throw this away, because this won't be with the gasket kit and you'll be missing it and it costs a fortune. So keep that, make sure it's nice and clean when you. This is the gasket that has caused this Citroen's wonderful machine's death and abandonation. This gasket is the gasket that's between the intake manifold and the top, and which the coolant water goes through the middle, and the intakes are on the sides. So in order to get this coolant in all of these intake bores here, that means that something had to happen. So if I turn this gasket around, you can see what has been happening here. Well, I'll take it over here from the table. Check that out. That is, when this was installed in the factory, this little wrapped piece here, you can see it's still hanging on there. Somebody mounted this on really fast and it crumbled the paper on the outer layer of the gasket. If it was a production fault, or if someone in the factory just smashed it on there and thought it was a good idea to just get it rolling. So, but anyway, yeah, what happens here is that when you drive the previous owner drove this car and he got it started and everything was fine, and he parked the car again. The pressure that's in the coolant system has been seeping through this wall here, as you can see clear evidence on, seeping through this wall here into one of the intake bores. And the same probably is also happening here in a little bit smaller scale. But anyway, this happened every time. Every time he got the car running and everything good, yeah, well, it was harder and harder to start, and got it running, everything seemed really nice and fine and nothing happened. But when you parked it, you couldn't get it running the next day, So, and this was in the in the late 90s, and it was already then, it was an old car. It wasn't old enough to be interesting to so many, but it was an old car and they didn't want to bother, and they tried all kind of stuff, things with it. They tried starter gas and push start in different gears, first gear, so towing it behind another car, and just crazy, yeah. But that's how it goes, yeah. So I suspect that they also tried the so-called Coca-Cola method, because I can see some trace here of something unusual in the carb, but whatever. I drained they kept the gas tank was kept full, like the older people, you got to keep the gas tank full for the condensation and everything, and water and everything, if you keep the car stored. So there was a full tank of fuel. That smelled really terrible. That was just I drained all that out, and I was really surprised, because it was so much water in there that over time, and the fuel was just filthy. So drained all that out. So that's probably also a cause of this. But anyway, what I think, you can see inside here, this all looks okay. It's gotta have to come apart, of course, being redone and renewed and checked and all that. But in here is a little treat. That is the deposit from all the good stuff in the previous gas and all that. When it didn't start, they filled up 5 liters and then waited 5 years and put in 5 more liters. Nobody really drained the tank ever in this car, so that's probably something about that. But what really took the cake and let me understand what happened with this engine was that previous owner parked the car, and the seepage through here during the night from the pressure in the cooling system made the intake fill up with coolant, and the coolant of course filled up the cylinder number 3, and also combined with the intake and everything. And in the morning he tried to start this car, didn't want to start, so they tried, you know, everything from the starter. They got a bigger battery, put that on, and everything didn't work, so they just pushed it off, and pushed it off real good, and smashed it in gear, and that caused the bending of the push rod. That's really what happened. And since that, it's just been running on 3 cylinders, and you know, never performing good again, whatever they did. So another thing I would like to show you and have a little look on, because it's new to me too, so I'm too young to remember this kind of clutch pressure mechanism. So I've been reading a little bit about it, and it's really fascinating, because it is the original clutch lamel that came out of it. That is Ferrodo, of course French, and these 3 fingers here are, as you can see, adjustable. This is the clutch plate, by the way. You can see the springs inside here. They all look good. It's cleaned up. It's not finished off, but it's cleaned up, and it is really good. This will be when I'm finished with this is gonna be a silky smooth, so no problem. But anyway, turn it around, and this is the bearing that sits inside the gearbox. This shaft sits inside the gearbox, and the clutch fork drive this is the bearing, drives this bearing forward, and that pushes on to these 3 fingers. So what I'm guessing, that after the clutch been installed and everything's in place, you should, you know, adjust this to engage with the new bearing just perfectly. So that's gonna be done when that time comes. But anyhow, I can see, since the original bearing has has been torn a bit in the years, this can still be reused. There's no cracks or anything here, so that's okay. One of them is a little bit more worn than the other 2, but I think it's gonna. We got the breather that's also been washed a bit, so I'm gonna reuse this. We got all new hoses ordered up for it, and it's gonna be the original water pump. Also just roughly cleaned up. Yeah, we definitely gotta check this out. Yeah, there can be a situation with this housing here. Not sure if this is gonna be savable, but I'm gonna have a look at it soon. So yeah, this is the fan, double, all this. Oh, we'll check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back with some more interesting about this renovation. So YouTube, that was the end of this part 2 of the Citroen ID 1970 rebuild rescue session, and hopefully I will be back again, and I'm really trying to improve to make these videos enjoyable to watch, and hit the like button if you liked it, and I hope you find it inspiring. Thanks for watching. Have a nice one.